good afternoon. Welcome to Dylan Talks Tone. Welcome to the Just Gonna Say It podcast. For those of you that are new here, this is a guitar-related channel. And on Tuesdays, we record a live podcast, and then it goes up to the podcast platforms. Best case scenario tomorrow. Worst case scenario, sometimes I have to catch up a few weeks like I did yesterday. So there's a bunch of new episodes on the other podcast platforms for you to listen to. When we get busy around here, it just kind of happens. I would like to thank my Patreon supporters, my YouTube supporters, everybody who uses super chats, super thanks, and of course, everybody who uses the links in the description to various products that we talk about, and Dylan Talks Tone, because that's what we do here. We make pickups. And so, thank you so much for supporting what we do and hanging out and talking about guitar stuff. First of all, welcome. I know it was a long weekend for a lot of people. For those of us who... Oh, there we go. For some reason... Oh, I know why. Okay, there we go. So for those of us who are in the United States, we had a long weekend. For those of you that are not in the United States, we had you probably didn't have a long weekend, but it was kind of nice. Took a couple days off. It was very busy. Did anybody get any cool Black Friday guitar-related stuff or not guitar-related stuff? I'm not going to tell you what I got because it's coming, and I want to surprise you with it. Because I did order something. So those of you that know, some of you Patreon supporters might know from hanging out on our monthly hangout thing last night, you know what I got. So please don't ruin it in the comments section. If you have guitar questions, please put them in the chat here with a bunch of question marks in front of it so that I can find it, because it's hard to do that otherwise. If you use a super chat, we'll drop what we're doing and we'll get to that question right away. I want to talk about, you may have seen on my social medias, if you follow me on Facebook, which I wish you would, as well as on Instagram, if you use either of those platforms at Dylan Talks Tone. We are also on Twitterx. But I'm trying to get my posting going more on Twitterx. So on social media this week, I've been thinking about a bunch of this stuff since I got my and since we were working on that Les Paul Ultra Light, or whatever it's called, Modern Light. It was a great guitar. It's a great guitar. If you have any questions about that, by the way, since that video came out yesterday, you can put those in the comments and I'll try to find them. We did an Epiphone Les Paul thing, and I've been playing a bunch of different guitars and trying different stuff. And one of the things that I wonder about, and I talk about this from time to time, but I know that some people get tired of me banging on about it. So I wanted to drill into this a little bit further. It's a hobby, like what we do. And actually, for some people, it's more important than a hobby, right? For some people, it's mental health related thing. Music, playing guitar is a mental health related thing. Some they make their living with it. Some folks, but I would say the majority of us here really, really just love guitar stuff. That's why we're here. That's why we nerd out about this every week, right? And when I like something a lot, typically I try to get something that I enjoy, like I really like. If you like guitar playing, you're not going to get something that you don't like. And so I did an experiment in a couple of steps. I did a survey on our YouTube timeline, okay? And I did it on Facebook in a different way because they don't have surveys on Facebook. So I did a survey on our YouTube timeline, and I said, do you buy gear based on how cool you think it is, or are you purely practical? I was extremely surprised, but not surprised. Disappointed might be the more accurate answer. 28% of people, which was the smallest percentage, 28% of people said that they like cool stuff just because it's cool. Like they just like cool stuff. Cool stuff's cool. And so when they try to buy a piece of gear, they want it to be cool. Only 28%. 30% said that practicality is more important than fun. They want their gear to be, it serves a purpose, and I don't care. It's just got to serve a purpose. And if that's it, whatever. And then some people, 42% said it's a mix. And most of those folks were like, the guitar has to be cool. If it's ugly, I don't want it. But it also has to fit into my repertoire somewhere. It has to work. It has to work properly, and it has to work into my stuff. So what say you? How important is it that your guitar be cool? It's very important to me. I do not own stuff that's not cool. Now, let's be fair. That's a lie, because there's stuff that we have that's not cool, that totally just serves a utility. This crock pot right here is not cool. Okay. I use it for wax potting, and it's not cool. It's totally utility. So I understand that. But when we're talking about something that we do for fun, okay. Okay. Well, let's take, let's take the king of it. I just bought a new Tomahawk. I'd been threatening to buy a new Tomahawk for a while. So I bought a, what is this thing? Half-face blades Tomahawk. This thing is totally impractical. Cannot be used for cutting wood. Cannot be used for camping. It is only a battle Tomahawk, which I will not use. Totally impractical, but so cool that it was worth owning. Okay. Sometimes we have things that are in between that. So we have, I don't know, like this pocket knife right here. This pocket knife is really cool because it's an automatic ProTech. It's got a blue blade. It's like super cool, but it's also a really hard working knife, and you can do practical things with it. So there's a split, right? And then we have this crock pot over here that's not fun at all. There's no point in it except for 100% utility. But the thing is, I didn't buy the crock pot for fun. I didn't buy the crock pot to enjoy when I got home from work. I did not buy the crock pot to take out and use on the weekends when I was playing with my friends. I bought the crock pot to do a job and a job only. I would surmise that the majority of us who are guitar players do not use these things specifically for the tool that I use this crock pot for. I would say a lot of us, apparently 42%, is like this pocket knife. It's got to be kind of cool, but also, if I don't use it, I don't want it. And then there's a bunch of people who buy like fancy PRSs and stuff. And I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying that'll buy something cool just because it's cool. Because I like having cool stuff. The reason I bring this up here, let me get back over here to some comments. Nothing wrong with owning something that is only cool for looking at. Exactly. Slap a Slayer sticker on it. I do practical, but cool is usually a factor. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So then there's the thing that people say. Okay. So there's the majority of people will say, I want the cool thing, or a lot of people will say, I want the cool thing. If you take the people that say it's mostly cool, and you take the people that say it's all the way cool, it has to be all the way cool, that's the majority of people. But then we make a video about Gibson versus Epiphone. And all of a sudden, everybody is like, the Gibson's not worth it. The Epiphone is just as good. I saw somebody today say, I have a Hohner Les Paul that's better than a Gibson. I don't believe that, but if he believes that, that's totally fine. He can enjoy it. All the Harley Benton people, all of the Epiphone people, all the Squire people, all of the SE people, all of the people that play less expensive guitars will say it's just as good as the expensive one. A lot of people, the majority of people will say that. Objectively, when we stack up the materials and we stack up the time built into the manufacturing of the product, we know that not to be true. So here's the question. If we want our stuff to be cool, why do we settle for stuff that's not cool? And I understand that money's a part of it. But when you look at a hobby, it's like people say one thing and then they do another thing. Okay, next phase of my experiment. Then I went and I made a post and I said, money, no object. If you could buy one guitar, what would it be? 195 comments, not one Epiphone. Except for the one guy who was a smartass about it. 195 comments, not one Epiphone, not one Harley Benton, not one Squire, not one PRS SE. It was all really cool stuff, which those guitars are cool too in their own rights. But I'm just saying, when you take away, and we don't have to go all the way to a $15,000 guitar here. My point is that somebody would say this guitar is just as good as this other one. But if you were given the opportunity to have a real Fender or a Squire or an Epiphone or a Gibson or a PRS or a PRS SE, if you had the opportunity to have either one of those, you would choose the better one. You would. And if you don't, except for if it's like a particular model that comes with certain features or whatever, okay, I get that. But side-by-side comparison, basically the same guitar, except for this one's the real one and this one is the import version. You would take the good one. And if you're telling me otherwise, you're lying. Pretty much. Not everybody. I understand it's a generalization, but pretty much. I'm curious as to what that mentality is, where it comes from, and why do guitar players hold so fast to that? Why? I'm not talking down about it. I don't care, because I don't, how you feel about a guitar is not important to me. If you like a guitar that I don't like and I like a guitar that you don't like, or if you like music that I don't like and I like music that you don't like, I have no problem with that. We're still going to have a beer and we're going to hang out and we're going to talk about music stuff and we're going to find a common ground and we're going to be friends. That's kind of the way I am about almost everything in life. There's very few things, if you're a Nazi or something, that might be a little different story, but you know what I'm saying? Like 99% of things, we're going to find some kind of common ground and have a cool conversation and be friends, and it's going to be fine. So there's no point in making enemies with another guitar player about what he plays versus what I play or whatever. There's no point in making like a argument over that, or, comparing negatively or anything like that. I guess my point is, if you like what you like, then why don't you buy what you like? And I know money is a thing. So when you have to buy something that's not what you like, okay, so this is the next step. Beyond that, now we know you want the expensive thing. Everybody does, okay? Not one person out of 195 people wanted the cheap thing. They wanted the expensive thing, okay? But sometimes we can't have it, so we get the cheap thing, right? So then the next step in the experiment is, if you can't have the expensive thing and now you need the cheap thing, totally cool, right? That's why they have Epiphones and Squires and all that stuff, and they're amazing. They're great guitars. And so you buy the best guitar you can afford, right? Like we always talk about that. You buy the best guitar you can afford. So then why do you spend all of your time trying to justify why the cheap thing is just as good as the expensive thing, when given the expensive thing versus cheap thing choice, you would take the expensive thing? It's a bit of mental gymnastics that guitar players do, and I don't understand it. And the reason I dive into this so much is because if we did not worry about this and we just bought a guitar because it was cool, even a cheap one, because cheap guitars are cool too, and did not feel the need to justify it to somebody else, then the entire community would be a better, cooler place. Because it just would. It just would. In all other hobbies, I think it's because it's not music, right? Like in all other hobbies, there are better metrics that cannot be ignored. So, for example, okay, we'll just take the pocket knife again. So this pocket knife is made this is probably, okay, this is S35 VN steel, and it has got a PVD coating on the blade, and it is a milled aluminum handle. Okay. Let me see what else I got in my pocket. Okay. This is an S45 VN blade, titanium handles with micarta onlays, and this knife costs twice as much as that other knife. Okay. But quantifiably, we can look at it and we can say, well, we know this steel is harder. It's better. The milling on this, the workmanship on this knife is better. You can definitely tell it. Now, it might not be worth it to everybody to spend what this knife costs, okay? Because it's twice as much as that one. But you can look at this and say, this material costs more, this costs more, this time costs more, this costs more. Okay, so it's more expensive. And it's very quantifiable. This steel, you can look at a chart and say, this steel is better than this steel, blah, 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 blah. You can do that. So in other communities around the internet, there will be your guy who tries to make somebody else feel like crap for having something cheap, but he's a jerk. Most people will go, okay, well, yeah, it's a more expensive knife. It's not worth it to me because I don't want to spend whatever this knife costs. So I'm just I like this one, but I do know that I have to compromise with this particular steel in this knife compared to this one. I know that there's a compromise when I buy this knife versus this one, but I also get a feature that I like because this one's an automatic. So you can sit there and you can quantify those things, right? Very, very simple. Same thing with cars, same thing with motorcycles, same thing with all kinds of stuff. It's actually exactly the same thing with guitars. You can take this guitar and say, okay, well, these frets aren't as good as this. This wood is not as good as this. These pickups are not as good as this. This wire is not as good as this. Where it's manufactured, it does make a difference because blah, 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 if that's important to you. This fretboard material is not as desirable as this, even though it's just it's fine. Like Indian Laurel and Pale Pharaoh and stuff. These tuners are not as high quality as these ones, whatever. You can do the exact same quantifiable analysis of two different products that cost two different things at different price points. Yet somehow in the guitar world, people cannot. It is, there are some that do. So don't want to overgeneralize, but it is almost impossible to make a video or to report on a product without somebody saying that thing's a piece of crap, mine's better, mine's just as good as blah, blah, blah. It's not. So why do we then say, I would rather have the nice thing, but then have to justify the less expensive thing when that's the thing that we have, right? If you can afford a Volkswagen Golf and you can't afford a Porsche 911, you find a way to love the Golf, and it's cool. And other people will go, oh man, I like Golfs too. I remember when I had one. That was really cool. Nobody says to you, somebody with a Volkswagen Golf, well, it's no Porsche 911. So don't do that to your other guitar player friends, first of all. And second of all, if you play an Epiphone, be proud of what you have because they're really freaking cool. And Squires and anything inexpensive is really cool. And I'm glad that you're playing guitar. I think it is amazing. It's just a weird mentality that I cannot get a handle on. I'm trying to figure it out. Probably no point in trying to figure it out. But as we do content, 1,500 videos in, 14, however many it is, it's weird to me because when we make content, okay, when we make a video about something, people accuse me all the time of like trying to be controversial about stuff, but I'm not. Honestly, it's literally, this is reality. Like, this guitar has this on it, this guitar has this on it, and these are the differences between these two things. Here is science, okay? Like, this is where this wood comes from, this is where this wood comes from. Do you care? I don't know if you care. I don't care. Do I care? Sometimes, not all the time, okay? People just lose their shit. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's weird. It's weird. I think people confuse just as good with good enough. I don't need a Gibson for what I do, but it would be nice to own one. Dude, see, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Different perspective and different way of looking at it, right? And one of the things that I think about when we do this stuff is I never talk bad about anything. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but we don't, if you objectively look at our videos, there's probably been in 13 or 1400 videos, maybe 3 or 4 that I've ever actually talked bad about a product. I could tell you what they are. That stupid thing that goes on the back of a Telecaster that goes from the bridge to the neck plate that's supposed to make more sustain. That thing is stupid. Don't buy it. The Coolness guitar with the plastic neck and the aluminum body. That thing's a piece of crap. Don't buy it. What else? There's like 2 or 3 products that we've ever had on the channel that I would tell you, do not buy this thing. It's a piece of garbage. Anything by Glary. Don't buy anything. Glary guitars. Don't buy anything. But other than that, if there's something that I think that is not does not align with what we do here, then I just won't review it. We just won't do it. Okay, so we don't talk bad about products. And I think that people have a opinion that we talk bad about stuff when actually we're just trying to show you the difference. And whatever, I'm just going to say it, this is my just going to say it thing for the week, but whatever personal battle you have internally with, I don't know, who your daddy is or whatever thing, or, you know, maybe you need to 1-800-BETTER-HELP or something, that has gotten you to the point where you are frustrated with the fact that I say that this guitar is $1,500, and the reason is because it doesn't have this part, and this part, and that's why this other guitar that's $1,500 is, you know, whatever. Like, explaining where the parts come from, explaining all those things is somehow offensive to people. That's not on me. That's not on the piece of equipment. And you know what's really interesting? It's not on the company either. The amount of people that are flipping out that the Gibson Modern Light is $1,500 is mind-blowing to me, because people are like, that guitar shouldn't be that expensive because that guitar is not, Gibson's prices are getting out of hand, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? It's called inflation. I don't know if you know how inflation works, but it's not cool, and it's happening, and it is expensive, and parts are expensive, and things are getting expensive. Everything is getting more expensive, and it has to go somewhere. It has to go somewhere. You can't just pay 20 to 30% more for parts and leave the price of the guitar at the same money. You just can't do it. It's not economically feasible. And if you think that 20 to 30% parts increase is out of line, you would be wrong. Some of this stuff is really going up. Wood is crazy. There was like a big hump in it, and then it's maybe come down a little bit. But here's the problem. As wood, so for example, I'll just give you a quick example. As wood sources change, so for example, Gibson is getting a bunch of wood from Fiji now, where they were getting wood from South America before. They're still getting some from South America, but a lot of it's coming from Fiji. And it's really good mahogany. It was planted around World War II. It's really, really good stuff. It's coming from Fiji. A great stand. I think the English government planted it over there after World War II or something. It's really good stuff. So don't worry about the quality of the wood. It's really good. So Gibson's using some of that. I think they're still using some out of South America too. Problem is that shipping costs have gone up. So if you paid X amount of dollars for a body blank before and X amount of dollars to ship it, and then shipping doubles, where does that cost go? It goes into the guitar. You know, when a hang on, let me turn my volume down here. When a container that used to cost $6,000 to come from Korea, for example, now costs $18,000 to come from Korea, each one of those guitars in that box gets more expensive. You know, those sorts of things happen. They're overcompensating for the small things. So, okay, so styrene builds, let's talk about that. That's a very, I don't mean to call you out in a negative way. So let's talk about that. They're overcompensating for the small things. Here's the problem, is that the small things make up the big things. Okay, so there's typically in business, and I don't know how you run your business, styrene builds, but to stay solvent in any company. Now, I've run a bunch of companies and sold them, and built up other companies and sold them, and you know, I've done this a couple times, and we're doing okay now. Fender does this the same way. Any company does this the same way. You can pretty much figure a 4-to-1 ratio from the consumer price to the price of a part. Okay, so if something costs $1, the consumer gets charged $4 for it. And where they get that number from is you have to give about 40% for the distributor. So for Guitar Center or for Sweetwater or for the whatever mom and pop dealer, they've got to make 36 to 40 points. Okay. And then you've got to have all of your shipping, all of your manufacturing, all of your labor, all of your everything. So every part that is $1 costs $4. So at scale, that's a massive deal. So what that means is on a $400 guitar, let's say we have a classic vibe. It's $479. Okay. I don't know what they are now. I think they're right around there somewhere, or $529, something like that. Let's use $500. If a pickup goes from $3 to $5, that's $2. That means the times 2. So the guitar's got 2 pickups in it. So now we've got $4. So now it goes $8. So now that guitar needs to go from $500 to $524, $529. That's how that works. So overcompensating for the small things is not actually overcompensating. It's actually adding up the things in a way that keeps the business solvent. If you don't agree with how that works, I don't know, you could try some other form of government, I guess, but that's how that works. That's literally how business works. It's typically about a 4-to-1 ratio. And so, and people think that, Gibson is setting a price, for example. Nobody gives Fender a hard time about this. They always give Gibson a hard time about this. But people think Gibson sets a price for a guitar because they're trying to get something out of you. Like they're trying to rip you off. Like they're trading on their name. I've heard of that. Like you're paying for the name. It's just not true. It's just not true. The fact that a $1,500 guitar can be made in the United States and sold with nitrocellulose lacquer finish and decent pickups, and actually the guitar is really very good, is pretty remarkable in itself. It's pretty remarkable in itself. And when people say that they're stripping off all these features, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they are. And I'll tell you why. The biggest, for example, so the Gibson modern light that I've got over here has been the most compared to the What is that thing called? The one without the binding, with the satin finish. I forget what it's called. They just discontinued it. And that guitar was like $1,400, and this one is $1,500, and it seems to have, because it does have less materials on it. So doesn't have trapezoid finishes or trapezoid inlays, doesn't have a couple other things. Why did they have to do that? Because they had to come up with a way to have a $1,500 guitar, because a $1,300 or $1,400 guitar wasn't cutting anymore, because the cost of things went up. Instead of raising the price on that guitar, it made more sense to replace it with a guitar that they could afford to sell for that price. So it's not that Gibson prices are going insane. All prices are going insane. But a lot of times what will happen is a company will change a product line so that they can raise the prices on, because the cost of goods go up, but they have to change that cost of goods to still maintain a particular price point. Pretty soon, there will be no $1,500 guitar. 5 years from now, there will be no $1,500 guitars. Not made in the United States. They'll all be $2,000. That'll be the new number. For the entry level made in the United States guitar will be $2,000 from Gibson. From Fender, it'll probably be, what's the cheapest one you can get now? $1,249 or $1,349, something like that. That'll be pretty close to pushing $2,000 in 5 years. Everybody will be spending $2,000 for a made in the United States guitar, no matter what. And it's not because they're trying to rip you off. It's because you are old and you have experienced inflation over your lifetime. Me too. We all have. The older we are, the more we complain about this, because the more we've experienced it. Younger folks, they know what something costs because it's cost that all their life, because they're not that old. So the older we are, the more we complain about it. It's just kind of how it works. Let's see. The cheapest guitar that I would recommend is a US made PRS. It starts about $1,800. Yeah, so those S2s are pretty cool, right? Made in the United States. They're pretty awesome. This new Fender stuff, the American stuff's really good. I have one and it's great. This Gibson thing, same goes for Snickers bars. Dude, no lie. You've seen all the jokes about why didn't they have any Black Friday sales at the grocery store? Come on, man. Like, everything is getting more expensive. It just so happens that we want to live in a world where, I remember when I bought that guitar and it was $400 in a pawn shop. That world does not exist anymore. Just doesn't exist. Hey, Dylan, went to Gibson Garage and your friend Dylan helped me out. Oh, cool. Yeah, Dylan's a cool dude. Ended up spending $3,000 on the most beautiful Les Paul I have ever seen. Awesome, Rusty. That's super cool. Yeah, Dylan's a cool dude. I met him when we did the Gibson tour, and I bought my SG, a Junior, from Dylan, actually. Yeah, super cool dude. And I know that, there could be a lot of people that would say, just buy a used guitar or whatever. Yeah, totally cool. Yeah, exactly. You could buy a used guitar. I don't like to buy used guitars because, for a couple reasons. One, if I'm going to sell it to you when I'm done, I don't want it to be a used guitar to begin with. I want to know where it came from so that you're confident in what you get when you get it from me, when it's when it's a project guitar or something. And then if I'm going to buy it for myself, that means I'm going to keep it for a very long time. Like, I don't mean the guitars that come in and out for projects. I mean, like, the stuff that I keep for myself, like my PRS Fiore, for example, my Gibsons, those guitars I'm keeping. So I like to have them new so that they're mine from the beginning. If it's something I'm going to flip, something I'm going to try, okay, maybe I'll buy a used one. But the other thing is, I want to know what it was like when it was from the factory, not after somebody fiddled with it. So I'm kind of particular about that stuff. I don't typically like to buy used stuff. But also, I am not afraid to play a classic Vibe Telly because they're great. Am I going to mod it and put pickups in it? Absolutely, for sure. But does that mean it's a bad guitar? Nope. Does that mean you have to mod it? Nope. I mean, I'll play anything. I don't really care. Most anything. Let's see. Are your P90s fitting in the Gibson Les Paul Modern Light? You have to order our Enduro to put in that guitar, and it's going to be a lot more single coil sounding. A used guitar has another's musk on it. I agree. It's just sort of a thing that I don't do. I'm going to go back here and see if I missed any questions, because I'm sure I did. Tribute. The Les Paul Tribute, which was a great guitar, but I can understand why they had to get rid of it. Let's see. It probably wasn't selling very well. That's the other thing too. I think the Tribute was an interesting guitar because it was a stripped down classic. And it kind of didn't have a reason to exist, if that makes sense. That to me was the guitar that was like not worth buying. Because you could just get an Epiphone and put pickups in it, and it got you most of the way there because it didn't have binding on the neck, and it didn't have, it didn't have all the stuff. So maybe you could get most of the way there with a fancy Epiphone. So there really was no reason to buy the Tribute. And so when they came out with the Modern Light, they completely redid the guitar. The guitar is not the same guitar. It's completely different. It's a completely different take on an entry level. It has a completely different reason for existing than just being a placeholder as the cheapest Les Paul, if that makes sense. The Tribute, so it gives it a more saleable appeal because the Tribute was like the guitar you couldn't afford if the guitar you got if you couldn't afford the full boat Les Paul and you wanted something American. The Modern Light. So somebody who has, like, I would never buy a Tribute because I already have a regular Les Paul. Like, it doesn't make sense. But I have a Les Paul and I would definitely own a Modern Light because they are two completely different approaches to do the same thing. They are, the Modern Light is a different guitar. I cannot explain. Well, I tried to explain it to you yesterday. When it's thinner and lighter, you just hold it different. It feels different on you, but it does not feel like an SG. It's really its own thing. And so I think that was a very smart thing of them to do because they took that kind of placeholder at the bottom of the range away and gave the $1,500 Les Paul a reason to exist. Not everybody's going to want that reason to exist, but the people that do are going to really enjoy that guitar. And other Gibson owners who have other Gibson guitars will have a reason to own that one also, where they did not have a reason to own the Tribute. And so I think that's maybe one of the reasons why they rethought that entire thing, which at least that's the way I see it. And it seems to be good because it's a really good guitar, actually. I lucked into a cool tribute, a honey finish wood back with P90s. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, hang on. We got a super chat. I missed. Sorry about the super chat, miss. Let's see. From Van Shank Guitars, you have to admit the super magnet charger is totally rad. Dude, you are not lying. The super magnet charger is totally rad. Thank you for the super chat, sir. I appreciate that. Sorry it took me so long to get to it. Previously misunderstood question. When measuring a humbucker's overall LCR readings, should I twist the coil wires together or solder them or only measure individual coils? What's the standard? I measure the individual coils. And then I twist them together or solder them. Doesn't matter as long as you get continuity, and measure them both. You will find that they will be different. So hang on, let me grab one. I got one right here. So these are soldered up and ready to go, but they've not been taped up yet. So we've got two coils here, right? So if I measure from the red one to the white one, that's going to be both coils on my pickups. And I'm going to measure, I put my meter up, otherwise I would do it. On this pickup, I'm going to measure somewhere around 8.2, okay, on both of them. When I go to the individual coils, which is going to be the red and the green and the black and the white, the individual coils might read 4.3, which would actually be 8.6, but when you measure them together, they will measure a little less than both of them separately. Just kind of the way it works. So you should measure them together. They remind me of the Les Paul Studio Lite. Yeah, I remember those. Yep, I totally remember those. Current Les Paul Studios have rosewood fretboards. They do, and so does that guitar. Has a rosewood fretboard as well. Epiphones do not, but Gibsons do. Let's see. Jim Woodard just picked up a 70s mirror guard Gibson Flying V. Dude, that's totally cool. That's totally cool. I think more people should make their choices based on how cool something is. Not what other people say is cool on the internet, but how cool they think it is. I buy all my guitars based on what I think is cool. I'm going to have a couple coming in here in the next couple of weeks that are going to be surprises for you. And you're not going to like one of them, I know for sure. And the other one's going to be a bit of a shock. I don't care. I like them. I like my pink guitars. I like my Machine Gun Kelly Telecaster. I like all the stuff. I don't care what you think of it because I like it. So if you would just make your decision based on that, it's totally fine. And if you like an Epiphone, if you like a Harley Benton, if you like whatever, it doesn't matter. Buy it. And I think you should buy it because it's cool, not because somebody on the internet told you that you should have it. That's why I never tell anybody what to buy when we do reviews. Is me wanting a Firebird 7 cool when the reason I want it is because it would go with my furniture? I see no issue with that whatsoever. I buy guitars for color all the time. I have guitars that are that I've bought literally because they went with something. Yeah, no, I 100% believe that. I need to remove the nickel cover on a Super 8 and put a new nickel cover on a center punch. Is it as simple as heating with a soldering iron and removing it? It moved. With the solder sucker will affect the wax pot. It will affect the wax pot because it'll get hot. So what you'll want to do is make sure that you retain as much of the wax as you can. And then when you put the cover back on, just flip it back over, like, legs down, cover up, and just or face down, it doesn't matter. And heat it up with a heat gun or a blow dryer, and just get it hot enough where you're like, "Ow, that's hot," when you touch it. 100 that wax is going to melt at 140. So think hot cup of tea. So I was going to say coffee, but you're over there. So think hot cup of tea. If you stick your finger in tea and you're going, "Oh, that's hot," that's hot enough. Do you prefer darker rosewood or lighter rosewood? I want the fretboard to look cool, so I don't care. Sometimes I like them light. Sometimes I like them dark. It depends on the rest of the guitar. If I look at the guitar, so for example, if I order a guitar from Sweetwater, I'm not super idealistic about this, is what I'm getting at. So many people are like that. And I think you be however you want to be. You be you. But I don't understand it. I don't know. Whatever. It's whatever. I don't care. When I go to Sweetwater and I buy a guitar and I go in their little gallery thing, I look at the overall look of the guitar and I go, I look at the grain of the body. I look at the color of the fretboard. And if it looks good to me and I like it, then I'll buy it. Some people, for example, have made comments about my Les Paul / Les Paul because it does not have a uniform top. It's not as figured as other, because it's a AAA top, but some folks are like, that's not as figured. There's Epiphones that are prettier than that. I get that comment all the time. I picked that guitar on purpose because Slash is like, my wife loves Slash. And so she's the one, she's like, you should buy that guitar. Well, another thing about Leslie that you may not know is she really likes stuff that is not symmetrical. So she doesn't like stuff that's perfectly symmetrical from left to right or from top to bottom. She likes it to be a little off because she likes the visual cue of that. So when I saw the top on that guitar, I was like, that's really cool because the grains are weird and it's got this weird anomaly in the top. It's kind of cool. I kind of like it. And when you move it, angle, it looks cool. Like, you kind of twist it like this. It looks really super cool. So I picked that guitar on purpose. I do that. That's how I pick guitars. When I think they're cool, I buy them. If they don't come in a color that I don't want, like for me personally, I'm never going to buy a Strat in a Sunburst. I'm never going to buy a Tele in a Sunburst. I'm never going to buy, unless it's a 58, because that's a real Sunburst and they only did it for 2 years. I'm never going to buy any of that stuff if I don't like it. I don't see any point in it. Let's see. After years of playing, my kids still tell me I'm not cool enough to own a Flying V. Oh, dude. You're always cool enough to play the Flying V is what makes you cool. If you didn't have... See, you are cool now because you have a Flying V. If you didn't have one, you probably would still be cool for other reasons that I don't know about. But when you got the Flying V, then you would be next level cool, no matter what your kids say. Now, you got to listen to your kids sometimes. If your kids are like, don't wear socks with your Crocs to the mall, listen to your kids. That's not cool. If you want to put the little monogram names of you and your wife at the bottom of the driver and passenger window on your Corvette, and your kids say that is not cool, listen to your kids. If your wife wants to put a leopard print fuzzy steering wheel cover on her Buick, and your kids say that's not cool, listen to your kids. But sometimes your kids are wrong. And telling you that you are not cool because you have a Flying V or you're not cool enough to have a Flying V, they are definitely wrong in that instance. If you need me to have a little intervention with them about that, I will definitely help you do that because that's super important. I got kids. They're not cool. I don't listen to them. I do listen to my kids. I do because one of the things I never want to do is I never want to become disconnected. People always get offended when I talk about this, but it's reality. So I am in the guitar business. I make my living with guitar stuff. If I do nothing but cater to vintage loving guitar players, for example, who are in their 50s, 60s, then in 10 years, who am I going to sell to? They're going to be retired or dead. So I have to continue looking downwards in the age brackets, right? And all guitar companies are doing this. So this is why you're seeing more digital products. This is why you're seeing more plugins. This is why you're seeing more cool colors. This is why you're seeing all these kinds of things, because they need to reach down to stay a legacy brand. They need to understand what the next batch of customers coming up is going to look like. The only way you do that is by not losing touch with young people. And so I don't. I make sure that I took my daughter to lunch today, actually, and we talked about all kinds of stuff. And she had some really good ideas for me that I had not thought about for my business. So staying in touch with young people, I think, is very important. And there are people that say that young people don't know anything and blah, blah, blah. And they don't. And I just disagree with it. I think it's stupid to think like that. So, you can think, obviously you can think like that if you want, but I am not one to look down on the youths. I think they're very cool and they keep us young and they keep us fresh and they keep us learning, and they make it to where we're not stuck in our ways and we're always learning something new and trying something new. And I think it's really important to do that. So I do that on a regular basis. Let's see. I tell all guitar shops that they need to have a full-length mirror through their store. Dude, I totally get that. Yeah, because if you're not looking cool and not rocking, I think people should spend more money on guitar straps. I bought my first 2 really fancy guitar straps I've ever had this year, and I don't know, it has done something. My Les Paul strap has a zipper on it, and it's like, yeah, this is so metal. Even though I'm not metal. I don't, look at me. But still, I don't care. I think it's cool. Oh, see, and you want a Randy Rhoads V. That's not even a conversation. Just go get one. Totally opposite here. Figure tops must be consistently flamed everywhere and damn near perfectly book matched, probably because I'm an engineer. Symmetry is everything. So, it's funny. I cannot stand fancy wood. Paint the entire world black. Does not matter to me. Do not care. That's why I don't have a fancy. I'll probably get a PRS with a fancy top at some point just to have one in the collection, but that's why I don't have one. If it was up to me, I would have bought the gold top. I would have bought a gold top Les Paul, and I probably still will at some point. I do not like fancy wood. I am not a wood. It comes from my growing up. When I was a kid, our entire inside of our house was tongue and groove pine and cedar, and our furniture was handmade, my parents. And, all of our kitchen cabinets were made by hand, and it was all wood. Everything was wood everywhere. I don't even know if we even had sheetrock, maybe in a couple places in the house. Everything was all wood, and it was all knots and varnishy crap and urethane. And so I'm like so over wood. And then we burnt wood too. So we didn't have like a normal furnace. Like we heated our house with a wood stove. So you're going through, 9 or 10 cords, full cords, not face cords, of wood a year with a chainsaw splitting. I hate wood. I do not care about wood. I mean, I care about it in the sense that we need it, and I care about the wood in the sense that, it's good to make sure that it's dried out properly and all the technical things that are important to make sure that the guitar works. But I have zero connection or need or, oh, it's so warm. Oh, totally warmth. I need the warmth of it. That's stupid. Oh, I don't care about any of that. Make the entire world black, rhino lined everything, carbon fiber, plastic. I don't care. No wood. I don't really mean that, but that's where my brain goes. I'm just so over wood. Oh, man, that's funny. Yep. Yeah, I'm paint everything. Yeah, we had, so Marcel, the 70s chalet look with wood paneling everywhere. We actually had wood paneling and it all came out. So we had the laminated wood paneling, and all of that came out, and in its place went actual like 3/4 by 6 cedar and pine tongue and groove, depending on where in the house it was. Just like hallways full of tongue and groove, like just beams. We had big beams, railroad ties in the house. I mean, just all kinds of wood everywhere. Yep. You angry and up the luthiers today. Hi. I mean, if you like wood, go for it. Do it. And I'm not opposed to having a wooden guitar, obviously. But that's why you're going to not hear me like freak out about every little thing, and why I don't care if my rosewood is a little lighter or darker, or I just want it to look nice. And here's my thing. If I'm comfortable on the instrument, and this goes for you too, whatever you think about the tone wood debate, for example, how you hold the guitar is going to make much more difference in how the guitar sounds than what it's made of. There are so many other things that, and you can play the guitar differently, and you will sound a certain way, and it will sound like you. And if you go from ash to alder, you'll still sound like you. And one will be harder to paint than the other one, and harder to sand, and heavier or lighter, depending on how much you paid for it. So, there you go. All right, you guys. This has been fun. I'm going to a play tonight. My sister-in-law is in a play, and so we are going to go see it. So I have to go. You guys have been awesome. We will see you on Thursday.